Take me to your leader. Welcome to the Headbangers at the Hangar podcast. I am your host, Andrew Mercer. As always, we are brought to you by Monster Energy and Spotify. How is everybody doing today? You can tell by my holiday attire that this will be the last episode of the 2021 year, and it's a good one. We're gonna wrap up the year on this episode. I just interviewed with the first doctor that we've had on the show. Okay, this is Dr. Mikel Delgado. She is a cat behavioral therapist. It was a really good interview, very informative. We talked for over an hour. And, a lot of people, I told them that I was doing this and I was having her on. People ask me, Andrew, you do a podcast about heavy metal and about aliens. Why are you having a cat behavioral therapist on? And I say it's really easy, guys. It's quite simple. A metalhead by nature is an introvert, okay? A cat by nature is an introvert. Now, metalheads I know, they really don't like dogs. They all like cats. There's a connection that, hard music lovers and cats have. So I thought it would be really cool, and secretly, I just love cats, and it's my show, so I really don't care what you guys think. But it was awesome anyway, It was a really good interview. I can't wait to give it to you guys. My voice is a little hoarse. I just recorded a Christmas video. It's a special one-off. It's about 8 minutes where, well, I won't give it away, but just check it out. It's the Headbangers at the Hangar Christmas video, which is going to be dedicated. It is dedicated to all the delivery people out there this holiday season. I used to work for the post office. I know what that life is all about. It takes a lot of sacrifice from those people. It takes their families a lot of sacrifice. After Thanksgiving, those guys are never home. We're talking the post office, UPS, FedEx. They are gone once the holiday season rolls around. They sacrifice every day. Make sure you tip this year. And that video, it's dedicated to them. I don't really want to talk about too many other things. It was a really great interview. So I think we're going to get right to it. She's been a cat behavioral therapist for a long time. She used to also be in a band, which was really cool. Actually, she'll tell you during the interview, but she auditioned to play bass for a very prominent 90s band. So that was really cool to hear about. We're going to get right to it. Guys, it's been a great year. It's a new show, building it up. I really appreciate everybody that's tuned in this year. It's been fun. I've talked to some really great people. I got some other things in the works. And again, on behalf of all of us, all the crew, the whole team, I was hoping that one of my cats would walk in here. I left the door open. But on behalf of all of us over here, Headbangers at the Hangar, in all seriousness, have a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We will see you guys in 2022. Without further ado, our first doctor, Mikel Delgado. Hey, Mikel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Andrew. How are you?
Good.
Good.
First of all, before we get into anything, me and you talked a little bit yesterday. You mentioned that you were involved in a hit and run.
Yeah, I had a little car accident yesterday.
Give us some details.
Someone rear-ended me at I was waiting for a left turn light, and somebody rear-ended me, and then they took off and left the scene. So
Were they going fast?
No, because we were stopped at the intersection, and
Uh-huh.
then the light hadn't changed. They just decided to drive into me.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I mean, the bumper of my car is pretty messed up, but I feel okay today. So I'm,
All right, good. And you correct me if I'm wrong. You're out in California, right?
yeah, I'm in Sacramento.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
Terrible drivers here.
yeah. Well,
But
luckily
we
you're
did.
okay. Luckily you're okay.
Plate. Yeah, we got the license plate, so I don't think that'll do any good. But
Oh, you didn't? How did you get the license plate? Did you get it, or somebody else spotted it?
no, I got it. So they so after they hit us, they backed up and then made a right turn instead of a left turn. And when they made the right turn, we could see the back of their car perfectly. And so when the light changed, we made the left turn, pulled over, and then they drove past us a few minutes later. So they obviously
really?
took off, turned around, and then came back. And my boyfriend stopped me from pursuing them. So we called the cops instead.
Yeah. Was a kid probably texting and driving, right?
Probably something stupid. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been telling a lot of people in my life we are huge fans of cats, and the show I do, it's a music show. It's, I mean, primarily based off of like heavy metal music. So people are like, what are you having a cat person on the show for? Like, how does it connect? I have to tell people, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. It connects perfectly, in my opinion, because people that are big fans of heavy metal music are generally huge fans of cats. I think that a person who's into harder kind of music, they tend to be kind of introverted, whereas cats, as opposed to like dogs, are more of like an introverted animal as well. So there's kind of a connection there. What do you think about that?
I like the connection. I was back in my teenage years, I was a bit of a metalhead. That was kind of my pre-punk phase or whatever. So yeah, I think certainly the research that has been done on kind of the differences between people who tend to prefer cats and the people who tend to prefer dogs does show exactly what you said. Like, people who are into cats do tend to be a little more introverted and maybe a little more introspective, artistic. So that fits in perfectly with being a fan of several types of music. I think the only sad thing is that the research also shows that cats don't like heavy metal music or punk music very much. They prefer classical music.
Really?
Yeah. So so probably the cats don't enjoy the metal as much as we do.
Yeah. Well, there could always be an exception. You never know.
There could always be an exception. Yeah. So maybe, just be conscientious of that when you're blasting tunes in your house.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a little older now. I have a newborn at the house. Well, not a newborn anymore. She's 18 months. So
congrats.
My days of blasting music in the house are long gone.
Yeah. So. Headphones, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you went through a heavy metal phase. What kind of bands were you listening to?
Well, definitely. So this was back in the mid 80s. So a lot of hair metal going on,
Your Motley Crue's, Poison, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, got into Metallica, and that was kind of the transition band into punk, right? Metallica, and then you get into the Misfits, and you're into hardcore. So that was kind of the natural progression, but definitely super into the hair metal.
All right, awesome. Well, hey, remind me before we go, I definitely want to talk to you about your musical career, because I know that you used to play bass in a band, but let's jump right into the cat stuff. I usually don't write down questions for guests, but like I said, a lot of people are interested. I didn't want to miss anything. So I do have a couple questions. Some of this stuff I already know the answer to, but just educationally, let's knock some stuff out for people. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. So a big one right off the bat will come with a heavy hitter, right? A big problem people might have with cats is urinating outside of the litter box.
Sure.
Now that can happen for behavioral reasons, and also there could be some medical stuff attached. Just could you touch on that for us for both instances? What are some behavioral issues, and what might be some medical issues where you got to have to look at it for?
Yeah, no, it is a common problem, and people do get pretty upset if their cat's not using the litter box. Obviously people don't want their stuff destroyed, and so it is something that a lot of people come to me for help with, people have questions about, and I take it very seriously because cats end up in shelters if they don't use a litter box. So it's so it is and the sad thing is it's usually pretty easy to fix a problem as long as you kind of take a breath, maybe get professional help if you need it. But yeah, you touched on, there's usually a few reasons that cats have litter box avoidance issues. And so we always want to rule out a medical problem. So that would be something like a urinary tract infection. There are certainly diseases, especially of old age, that can cause cats to stop using the litter box. So diabetes, changes in the thyroid. So I always say, if your cat's not using the litter box, start with a veterinary exam, tell your vet what's going on, and they can at least tell you if it's a medical problem or if it's behavioral. You know, and of course, sometimes it's both, right? Maybe you start off by having pain when you go to the bathroom, and you learn like that the pain is associated with the litter box. And so now, even after the problem has been treated medically, maybe the cat still has learned that they don't want to go back in the litter box. So sometimes it's not just like a clear-cut line, which is why I do tend to recommend, like, if you're not able to fix the problem yourself, like, don't wait too long to get professional help. On the behavioral side of things, we have one is, okay, there's something wrong with the litter box, and from the cat's perspective. So maybe you think you're doing everything right, or you bought this fancy, expensive robot, and if the cat doesn't like it, then you have to fix the box. You're not going to necessarily get the cat to change their preferences. So certainly cleaning it twice a day is ideal. So like, people really need to scoop, and I can't tell you how many people have paid me to help them with a litter box problem. I went to their house and the litter box was disgusting, and so it was a pretty easy fix, but sometimes it's just hard for people to get into the habit of scooping the box. Maybe they put the box in the basement and they never go in the basement, and so they don't really know what's going on.
And if it's in the basement too, if you're upstairs, you're not going to smell it as much.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Yeah. So you really need to maintain the box. You need to, you know, use a litter that most cats like. Most cats like something soft. So I'm not a fan of the like chunky pellet litters. Those can cause a lot of problems for cats. The box should be accessible to the cat. If you have a, you know, even a young cat, but certainly if you have like a senior cat, you don't want them going down in the basement to go to the bathroom. Like, we like convenience. We want the bathroom to be close by. So cats do too. And there can be problems with things like covered boxes or like the top entry boxes. And some of that is dependent on the cat's physical condition. So if they're overweight or have arthritis, it's going to be really hard for them to navigate in and out of those boxes. You need to have enough boxes for the number of cats you have. So, you know, you can't just have one box if you have 5 cats. You should have at least one box per cat, and ideally at least one extra. So those are kind of the big things about the box. And then the other thing about cats is that they can sometimes experience litter box avoidance when they're stressed. And so it's, you know, they are sensitive animals. They are sensitive to changes in their routine, new people in the house, new animals in the house, construction, you got a new job, or, you know, you were home for COVID and now you're back in the workplace. So all of those things cats can be sensitive to, and it really depends on the individual cat. So some cats, just like some people, right, can kind of cope with stress and change and just kind of roll with it. And other cats do kind of have a little breakdown, like they can't really cope with changes in their environment. And so sometimes those cats do need a little extra support, whether it's behavior meds or changes in the environment that help them cope better with the stressors.
Now, if you were going to recommend a brand of litter, I'm not sponsored by anybody. Chewy hasn't signed me yet. So if we have some people on the edge, they just kind of buy the fly by night. You know, every week you buy a different litter. What's a really good litter you would recommend to just stick with it? This is the one you're going to use every week.
Yeah, so I generally recommend unscented clay clumping litter. And I like Dr. Elsie's products. So Dr. Elsie's makes a regular clay clumping litter. They also make a litter called Cat Attract, which is designed to attract cats back to the litter box. So yeah, I'm a fan of their products. Not endorsed. I have no personal investment in any products, but I do. I like that product. Everclean Unscented is another good brand, and Frisco is a cheaper clumping litter. I'm actually trying that out with my cats right now, and they seem to like it. So,
how many cats do you have?
I have 3.
Okay.
Yeah, not too many. They're sisters.
What number is too many? Where it's like it becomes kind of, in all seriousness, like a safety issue. Like there's always the joke of like, oh, the crazy cat lady. You go to the house and she's got 11, 12 cats running around. At what number is it just too much? You know, in an average size home?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in some places there are laws about how many animals you can keep, and I think in some places those laws are maybe a little too strict. So it really depends on the cats and your home and what you're willing to do, right? So I've definitely known people that had 10, 15 cats, had a large space, had a lot of vertical space and shelving and cat trees for them, and really set up the place nice, and the cats got along. I've had clients with 2 cats that hate each other, still live in a big mansion, so it's not really about space. It's really about the individual cats and how they're coping. We know that the risks of behavior problems do increase with a larger number of cats. So you're just increasing the chance you're going to have someone spraying or hiding. And so you really have to think carefully about what you can manage personally, financially. And, you know, of course, we recommend making sure all your pets are spayed and neutered so they're not reproducing. You know, you don't want to be making more cats. So it is, there's no right or wrong answer. Yeah, unfortunately. But I mean,
just be responsible and live within your means, basically.
Yeah, think about what you personally like, you know, the time you have to spend with your cats. Like, I like to have quality time with all of my cats. How many cats do you have?
I have 2.
Nice.
Yeah, we have two calico Maine Coons.
Nice.
Obviously, they're both female. You can only be a female if you're calico, right? Or is that just
99.999%? I've met one male calico in my life. So working in an animal shelter. Yeah.
Maine Coons are great. We got R2, and I had one when I was a little kid. His name was Frankie. I had him from I was maybe 8 to maybe 18, 19. And I mean, you know, they're great cats because they're very talkative. They're very interactive. A lot of people who don't like cats, they just lay around. All they do is sleep, eat, go to the bathroom, and sleep again. But with the Maine Coons, I find they're very playful. They're very interactive. They're, in most cases, very friendly.
Yeah, no, Maine Coons have a reputation for being kind of dog-like. You know, and what I recommend for people is, like, you know, when you're looking for a new cat, don't get too hooked on the breed, because there's always going to be the occasional Maine Coon that doesn't fit the stereotype, right? So you want to make sure that it's a good fit for your home, for your personality, what you're looking for in a cat. Your cats sound lovely. I have 3 sisters who are also, they're not calicos, but they're tricolored. So they're tortoiseshell tabbies. So similar genetics. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to have.
So when another question I have, so when you are introducing a new cat into the house, a lot of times, I know in our case, sometimes our cat gets super jealous. There's a lot of hissing, growling, guarding of the litter box. What's the best way to introduce a new animal into the home that's best for the older animals in the home? This could be with a dog too, like any kind of animal. What's the best way to kind of incorporate everybody into everyone's living space?
Yeah, it's tough because we really don't know why some cats don't get along, right? Your cats could get along with each other, and then it doesn't mean they like all cats, right? So I think people sometimes think, well, he liked the last cat, and then, you know, they lose a cat, so they want to get another one, and suddenly the cat is not so interested in a friend anymore. So it is really important to kind of consider, like, you know, am I prepared to do a slow introduction if I need to? Now, certainly some cats adapt very quickly to new cats. If they're younger, that helps. But kind of as they get older, I mean, I think the same thing is true of us. Like, when I was young, I lived in spaces with lots of roommates and didn't, you know, it was fun. It was like a nonstop party. And as I got older, I was less interested in having rotating, you know, list of people living in the house. I wanted a little calmer environment. So I think older cats do have kind of a harder time coping with, like, a young rambunctious kitten coming into the house. Overall, I mean, you're always going to have those exceptions. I remember a friend of mine, she had a 20-year-old cat, and she adopted a kitten, and I was like, you are going to kill your cat. Well, he loved the kitten, so she proved me wrong in that case. So it was great. You know, and he lived 2 more years. But in a lot of cases, introducing a new cat is going to be stressful. So what you want to do is go very slowly and give the cats every opportunity to like each other. So that usually means setting up a separate room for the new animal, having everything they need in that room, door closed. And then you've got to start bribing your resident cat into thinking the arrival of this new animal is associated with their favorite treats, with all kinds of attention, playtime. and then gradually introduce them, usually going one sense at a time. So you might start by like exchanging their smells, like just taking the bedding from the new cat, bring it out into the main part of the house. Don't force your cat to smell it. So this is not a smell the glove kind of Spinal Tap incident here. You're putting it on the floor and letting your cat kind of check it out on their own time. And then you might allow them to see each other. I like to do this with a baby gate between them or some kind of screen so that they don't fight. Like really what we're trying to do when we're introducing two new cats is associate their presence with something good and prevent them from having a physical fight. So I like a barrier where they can see each other. You can give them treats, you can play with them, but you know they're not going to like get into that ball of cats screaming, which tends to predict a much more difficult introduction. So that's the only thing we really know about cat introductions from research, is that cats who fight the first time they see each other are going to have a much harder time getting along, and months later they might still not be getting along. So we really want to try to just go slow, be patient. It's very hard. A lot of times people are like, well, let's just see what happens. And maybe things seem okay for a minute or two, like the cats are just kind of like a little freaked out, kind of not doing much, kind of walking around, and then suddenly there's a fight. So so there's really no, I wish there was like a magic wand where cats would just love each other. I mean, most of us with cats do want to have more than one. So the safest thing to do if you do want to have multiple cats is to adopt them as kittens at the same time, or adopt kittens from the same litter, which is what I did. I adopted 3 sisters at once. I was like, I don't want to do any introductions. I just want them to come as a family. And we know from research that cats that grow up together and are family members are more likely to be friends as adults. But that said, most cat introductions will go fine if you go slow. Like I said, give them reasons to like each other. Just be patient with the process. Usually within a month or two, most cats have accepted each other. And even if they're not friends, they can coexist peacefully. So it's about a third that people usually need a little more help.
Yeah, and we have a weird situation at our house because we took me and my wife, we were dating at the time, but we had moved in together, and she wanted to take one of the cats that she had at her mom's house. So we took her. Her name's Jenny, and we had her for like a year and a half, like spoiled her like crazy, you know. And then her mom was wanted to give us the other cats that she had, this one other one whose name is Snooky. Now, Jenny and Snooky were sisters. Okay. They lived in the same house at my wife's mother's house for many years, at least 8 years. So we had Jen, and then we brought Snooky over, and Jen was not happy about it. Even though they're sisters, they're blood.
How long have they been separated?
They were apart for about a year and a half.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's
my theory is that we kind of made this nice little nest for Jen, and she kind of got all the pampering and everything, and the introduction of any new cat, even though it was her sister, she wouldn't have it.
Yeah, no, and honestly, you know, it's a hard fact for us to realize, but some cats do prefer to live alone, or they're not disturbed by living alone. So I know I had 2 cats who were very bonded to one another, but when one of them passed away, I was devastated, but the remaining cat was like, oh, this is cool. I get all the attention now. So kind of the same thing that happened with Jenny, right? It was like, oh, now I don't have to, like, you know, I think a lot of things between cats are kind of subtle. It's kind of like having siblings, right? You love each other, but then you bug each other, and maybe, you know, you want to play video games, and then your brother like acts annoying, so you'll leave, and then he gets to play the video games or whatever. You know, I think that kind of stuff happens with cats too. And that's one reason it's really important to have lots of resources in your home for your cats. So like vertical space, like the cat tree, I could see yours in the corner. Yeah. You know, you want to have multiple litter boxes, separate feeding areas, so they don't have to compete. If they want to eat from the same food dish, that's one thing. But when you force them to eat from the same food dish, they don't have a choice. So we really want to just give our cats choices, and they can decide if they want to cuddle or they want to do their own thing.
Yeah. Since then, Jen and Snooky have reconciled.
Good.
So they're back to being family, but the first week and a half was a little tense. So same kind of thing. Like I'm in my early 30s. A lot of people my age are having kids. Yeah. So what's the best way for a cat to kind of get the cat ready for the newborn to come into the house?
Yeah, so prepare ahead of time. I had one person call me. She was on her way to the hospital in labor, wanting to know what she could do to help her cats adjust to the new baby. And I was like, well, you're
a little late.
A few months to prepare. So yeah, planning ahead is definitely important. So, you know, things you want to think about are like kind of new smells you might be introducing into the home. Like if you're using any scented baby products, like you want to introduce those like lotions and stuff early. And certainly like other changes, like if one room's going to be off limits because it's going to be a nursery, you want to get the cat used to that change several months ahead of time, so that when the baby's in there and you're in there, it's not like this weird, like they're scratching at the door, like, why are you in there? I mean, in most cases, you know, if the owner's open to it, I don't really recommend keeping rooms off limits to the cat, because we know cats hate closed doors. And as long as you're supervising, it shouldn't be dangerous for your cat to be around your baby. And if you're afraid that your cat's going to hurt your baby, then you probably should talk to a behavior professional and just, you know, make sure your cat doesn't need some help. But again, kind of like introducing a cat, you want the cat to think that the baby's arrival is paired with good things.
Yep.
So treats, playtime, try to fit in as much of that normal routine as you can. So I guess that's the other thing, is if you are anticipating major changes in your routine due to having a kid. I don't have a kid, so I haven't gone through this, but maybe you can speak to like kind of the lack of sleep, and like you're busier, and like I'm sure, you know, you and your wife had some changes. So you kind of have to think about like, what can we reasonably maintain after the baby arrives? And sometimes I think you can't anticipate that before, like how much it's going to change your routine in life and how little sleep you're going to get. But you know, I'd say try to include your cat in as much things as possible. So like, you know, if your cat likes laps, can you have your cat on the couch next to you while you're nursing? Or, you know, like play with your cat while you're holding the baby. So you've got a wand toy and you're trying to like keep the cat part of the family, not this kind of separate, like, you know, like, oh, second class citizen all of a sudden. You know, obviously things are going to change. That's inevitable, but we want to, you know, especially give our cats exercise and mental stimulation so they're not kind of desperate and bored. If they're afraid of the baby, then you do have to, you know, again, pair the baby's presence with treats. Before the baby arrives, you can get them used to baby sounds by like playing MP3s of babies.
That's what we did. We
nice.
We would YouTube a baby crying. You know,
yeah,
and there's
exactly.
A minute 30, you know, videos. And while the cat's chilling with us on the bed, it's like, okay, let's put the video on real quick. And then our cats were pretty good. They, you know, their ears just perked up. Even they really were never bothered by the, you know, the crying.
Good. And what you will find is when the baby becomes a toddler, that's sometimes where the cat is like, wait a minute, this is not what was going on. You know, because when you're holding the baby and they're not moving around, it's just like, okay, it's this weird screaming lump. But then when they start toddling and moving around on their own, not very gracefully, not like other humans, right? It's like young children do not move like adults. They're just a little more chaotic and less predictable. Yeah. So sometimes that's when the cats are just like, what the heck is going on? And so that's where the vertical space can be really important. The cat trees, the perches. So the cat can kind of watch the baby from above and not be on the same level as this creature who's like suddenly, you know, running after them very chaotically.
Yeah. All right. So kind of along the same lines, we all know that kid, right? Maybe it's not your kid. It might be your sister's kid or your cousin's kid. They come home to the house and just all hell breaks loose. They're jumping on your couch. They're screaming. They're throwing food. Now, I have one cat who she's terrified of like loud noises. So she'll just run under the bed for hours while that kid is at the house. Is there any way to change that, or is that's the cat's personality and she just kind of doesn't want to be a part of it? How do you help a cat with that noisy, chaotic kid?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think some of it is personality, or, you know, basically how confident a cat is shaped by a few things. It's shaped by their genetics. So, you know, if they have confident parents, they're more likely to be bold and not as scared by change or noises. We know that socialization is really important. So there's this tiny window of time between 2 and 9 weeks of age where ideally kittens are introduced to lots of new people, other animals, loud noises. That's their socialization window. And so cats that get a lot of handling during that period do tend to be more trusting, open to strangers. They're just kind of those very confident cats that people tend to, you know, especially if they're not cat people, maybe that to them is like what they want a cat to be like. And then the environment is also important. So you can support your shy cat by making sure they have lots of places that they feel safe in. So, under the bed may or may not be fine. Like maybe you can get them to go somewhere else. I mean, some cats just like being under the bed, but you can try giving them some caves or like cardboard boxes to hide in. When I have cats that are really nervous of strangers, usually before people come over, I just put them in the bedroom with everything they need, litter box, food, water, toys, and just don't even let them get to the point where the doorbell rings and they have to run.
And so when you put them in the bedroom, your door, so you put them in there, is your door open or closed?
Closed.
Closed?
Yep, certainly at first. I mean, if it's like, okay, these are a couple people they've met before and they're not, they might come out later, then I would crack the door and let them choose to come out. But if it's like, a kid and the cat's going to stay under the bed, not only the entire time the guests are there, but for a couple hours afterward, you might as well just close the door.
Yeah.
You could take one or two people into the bedroom if they're quiet and calm and maybe just have them sit there. You guys can chat in there, maybe give the cat treats, play with them with a toy and see if they'll come out. And so that's just like everything we do with trying to help cats cope with fear. It's really very similar to how we help people cope with fears, right? So it's what we call desensitization and counter conditioning. And I'll break that down. So because it sounds like, big words, but really desensitization is just gradually exposing you to something you're afraid of in a controlled way that doesn't get you super panicky. So if you were afraid of spiders and maybe you wanted to deal with your spider phobia, you would not want me to just come and put a tarantula on your face, right? Like first we just talk about spiders. Maybe you'd look at a picture of spiders, then maybe you'd watch a video of spiders. Then maybe I'd tell you, oh, there's a jar with a spider in it on the other end of the house. And then before you know it, that tarantula is on your face. But because we went very slowly, controlled, didn't get you afraid, just always stayed below your level of fear, you now are not terrified of spiders. And then the counter, so it's kind of like a volume knob. We started very low volume and gradually increase the stimulus. So in the case of your cat who's afraid of people, we'd start with the door closed. Then maybe a few visits later, the door is cracked open, and maybe a few visits later, people are sitting quietly on the floor, etc. So we're just gradually increasing the exposure. And then the counter conditioning part is where we're trying to change your emotional response from negative to positive. So we're pairing that scary thing with something you like, whether it's chocolate or cat treats or video games or cat toys. Like we're trying to give you a positive experience while we're giving you that controlled exposure to the scary thing. And so that's kind of how we introduce cats to other cats. It's how we deal with cats who are afraid of dogs or people or the doorbell, is that basic process with some, little variations here or there, but it's basically the same idea. It's like trying to keep you from completely freaking out, gradually exposing you to something and then pairing it with something you like.
Yep. All right, so take me back a little bit about your life. How did you get into cats? What was, how old were you when you got your first cat? Some early memories. What got you fascinated with them?
Yeah, I mean, I was always really into cats. Definitely, they were my animal of choice. And we had a few. I grew up in a pretty rural area, so we had a few, childhood cats that didn't have great outcomes. Hit by cars, they went outside. So certainly not always the best memories, but and then my mom was also mildly allergic to cats, so we never were able to have like a lot of cats. Mm-hmm. And in fact, there was a period where we didn't have a cat, and I think I begged her nonstop to let me get a cat. And so finally, when I was 16, we adopted Kittums. He was a kitten. He lived with me for 13 years before he died of heart failure. So he moved to California with me, and he was a great, super cool cat. But I hadn't really thought about working. Like I wasn't one of those people who was like, I want to be a veterinarian since I was a little kid. I was pretty aimless, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so what I did do was drop out of college because I wanted to start a band. So I dropped out of college, moved to California, started bands. And it wasn't until Kittums died that I started volunteering at an animal shelter because I wanted more cat time in my life. And
how old were you when he passed away?
30.
Okay.
Yep. So that was 2000. I was 29, I think. So around that age. So that was So definitely came to like I had a lot of I've had a lot of life changes and just you're never too old, I guess, to just do something new. And I've always just tried to stay open to whatever happens. And so I was volunteering in this animal shelter, and I basically started volunteering there so much that they offered me a job. And the shelter was in San Francisco, and it was pretty unique in that it had a behavior program. So they had departments dedicated to cat and dog behavior. And so I was volunteering in the cat behavior program. And this was really, the goals were to like educate people about cat behavior, keep cats in their home, so prevent them from getting surrendered to animal shelters for behavior. We offered, public classes on cats. We counseled people who were adopting a cat who had a history of a behavior problem. And so again, it was really focused on education, really helping people maintain their bond with their cat, make sure the cats in the shelter were getting appropriate handling so that they could become adoptable faster. And so I was volunteering in this program, and I just like became obsessed. I could not get enough of working with these cats who needed help and helping owners. And so one day I came home from volunteering, my boyfriend and I were eating dinner, and I was like, I think I want to become a cat behaviorist. And so at the time I was working at a co-op, a natural foods co-op. I was doing human resources there, and also playing in a lot of bands. And so that was kind of the moment where I was like, oh, I think I want to do this thing. Like, it's a thing. Like, I didn't know you could be a behaviorist. This was in like 2001, before Jackson Galaxy had a TV show, or like cats were really like on people's radar. And so then I just kind of was like, I started volunteering there as much as I could. I started reading all these books about cats, and then someone in the department was going on maternity leave. And so they're like, oh, do you want to work here? And I was like, yeah. Like, so I quit my job and started working at the shelter. And then the position, which was originally going to be temporary, turned into permanent. So I ended up working there for another 6 years. And then decided I wanted to go back to school. I was really interested in animal behavior, and kind of wanted to see, kind of what I could learn more formally. And also I was kind of burning out on working in an animal shelter. It's a really stressful place to work, and it can wear on you. And so
there's definitely some darker elements to working in a shelter.
Yeah, it can be really draining. And so I realized, like, I'm like, well, I want to work with animals, but maybe I need to kind of explore what other options there are. So I went back, finished my bachelor's degree, and then decided I wanted to get a PhD. And so that was like another 7 years of school. But during that whole time, I'd been doing consulting. So that's what I do a lot of, is helping people solve their cat problems. So that's always been, like, for the past, I guess, almost 20 years has been a pretty big part of my work, has been working individually with cat owners to help them fix problems. So so there's been a lot of things going on during that time, like I said, getting a PhD and doing research, and but the common thread has always been trying to help people with their cats.
So right now, are you doing primarily like house calls, or are people coming to your facility? Are you doing Zoom calls? How are you helping people with their cat problems?
Yeah. I mean, we used to do house calls quite a bit, and we always did remote consultations as well, because we were helping people who don't live where I live. And also a lot of cats are afraid of strangers. So sometimes going into the home, you don't really get to meet, you don't get to meet the cat. The cat's under the bed the whole time. I'm not going to pull them out from under the bed. So, so when the pandemic started, we decided to switch to Zoom only, or, video calls. And that's been actually really successful. Like, we can meet the cats via video. We can see the environment without going there. And, I can help people. I mean, I had a consultation in India a couple weeks ago, and, I've definitely help people in all kinds of places. So there's a lot more flexibility. And so at this point, I don't know if I'll go back to home visits, or if I do, it'll probably be on a pretty limited basis if the pandemic ever gets to a manageable level. But the Zoom is working really well. So I like it. And then, I have a day job at a tech company. And so the consulting is kind of side gig, and I'm writing a book now. So I always have juggling a couple things at once. But yeah, it's great to work with cat owners and really try to educate people and help them have a better relationship with their cat. It's really what it's all about.
What is the number one thing that you run into where people are looking for help with?
It's usually they got a new cat and the cats are fighting.
Yeah.
And then litter box problems. And then number 3 is cats keeping people up at night.
So that's one of my questions. All right. So
Oh, okay, great. Good segue.
obviously the cat, if everyone's at work, right, the cat will sleep during the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just makes sense. How much sleep for a cat is too much sleep?
It really depends on the cat's age. Certainly I have, like with younger cats, I do like tell people like it's like a baby, wake them up. Like if they're sleeping during the day, go wake them up, play with them, like and give them things to do. So I'm a big fan of food puzzles. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but these are toys that the cat manipulates for food. So actually I have one right here. This is a Slim Cat ball, and basically you just put the dry food inside, and then
Okay. And they bat it around. Yeah, there's little holes. Yep. They bat it around and it comes out.
So if you've got a young, healthy cat that likes food, I definitely recommend feeding them all of their dry food out of a puzzle or transitioning them to that, because it's a great way to keep them active throughout the day. It slows down their eating, so it helps hopefully prevents cats from eating too much food, gorging. It also, since it slows down their eating, I believe they will choose often to stop eating before all the food's gone, because they're like, oh, I feel satisfied, as opposed to like if you have a cat who just eats super fast, like they'll eat everything and then they don't realize they're full until it's kind of too late. So so food puzzles are great. I mean, I like bird feeders to watch. I mean, I do recommend that people keep their cats indoors, or if they do let them outside, to do so like responsibly and safely. So having a catio or harness training, or taking them out in a little stroller or something similar. It really, it's a personal decision for people whether or not they want to give their cats outdoor access. But certainly, like since we got a catio last year, we noticed it really helped our cats sleep more at night. So because they were spending all day outside watching birds and squirrels, so it was really good for them. But yeah, so if your cat's waking up at night, there's a few things. One is not letting them sleep all day. I mean, yeah, cats do sleep a lot. But if they are literally sleeping all day, then it's going to be normal for them to be awake at night. And so we just want to get them more on our schedule. We can also feed them at different times. So I do recommend feeding them their last meal of the day, kind of at your bedtime. So you're increasing the chance that they'll sleep more, decreasing the chance that they'll wake you up at 4 a.m. to feed them. And then playing with them more. So more physical activity with the toys, wand toys, feather wands, cat dancers.
It's Christmas time, people. So
yeah, get
stuff those cat stockings, get them some toys. We just put our cats' toys out yesterday in the stocking, so
that's so
they're all ready to go. Yay. So you were mentioning outdoor cats, right?
Yeah.
So one problem that's kind of unique to cats is an outdoor cat will sometimes kill a mouse or a bird, and they'll bring it to the front door. Now I love cats, but I like animals in general, except for dogs. Just kidding. But so anytime you see an animal that's, died or been killed, it's like the natural instinct is to yell at the cat. But in reality, we know that it's their way of saying, hey, I got you a present. What's the way to handle a situation like that? The cat drops a mouse at your front door. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, ideally you stop the cat from killing in the first place, and it's very tough because we have to accept that our cats are predators, right? So if you let them outside, there is a very big risk that they're going to be killing animals out there, and they may or may not bring them back. The bringing them back is interesting. We don't actually know if they're bringing us gifts or if they're just carrying the food to somewhere they feel safe. We know a lot of cats will kill the prey in one location and then carry it somewhere else to eat it. So it could be actually they're not bringing you a gift. They just feel better if the bird is on the front steps because they feel safer eating there. Yeah. They do make like bibs for cats and special collars that help deter hunting, but those work more on birds than rodents. Most of us also, I think, like aside from the bringing the rodent home, like don't mind that our cat is killing rodents. Like most people don't want rodents around their home. Yeah. But of course, you do have to be considering things like, are people putting out poison for rodents in your neighborhood that your cat could get sick if they ate a mouse. So, but you can't really stop them from bringing it in. Like there's really nothing you can do.
You can't follow them outside for the most part, So.
Yeah, I mean, so you just have to clean up the crime scene and accept that your cat is a hunter, or transition them to indoors only, or take them outside on a harness. So you're really controlling what they do outside. And those are kind of your options. And like I said, I chose to build an enclosure for my cats so they can go outside and sit in the sun and watch the birds. But they did bring a worm in last week, actually.
Oh.
So we'd had some rain, and then they caught a worm and brought it inside. So that's about the level of the carnage we're experiencing right now, or a fly. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to kind of make a decision, just weigh the risks. You know, people can get really worked up if you suggest cats have to stay inside. A lot of people think it's cruel, and then other people think letting cats outside is cruel. So you just have to know, like, okay, if your cat goes outside, what could happen? They could kill birds, they could get hit by a car, they could get in a fight, they could get poisoned. So you just have to understand. And then if you keep the cat indoors, there's also risks. If you don't play with them, if you don't provide them with scratching posts or climbing options, then there is a chance that your cat's not going to be very happy inside. We have to put some effort into keeping our indoor cats happy, with toys to play with, things to do, food puzzles, attention, all those things. Like, it's, I think sometimes people say, oh, cats are low maintenance. And I try to combat that myth. And, cats need play, they need exercise, they need attention.
They're only low maintenance if you as the pet owner make them low maintenance.
Exactly.
If you engage with them, obviously a lot of times they're going to engage back. So
exactly.
you're right. That's a very lazy statement. I don't like that either.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are the general thoughts about catnip? Is that safe? That's healthy for them?
I'm pro catnip. So we know the catnip response appears to be a genetic response. So some cats just are not going to have any response to catnip. It's like it just doesn't register for them. So that's about probably like 30% of cats won't respond, but the other 60-70% will. So I endorse catnip. You just have to know how your cat behaves on catnip. So if your cat gets really riled up, you want to maybe make sure that they're not around other cats or your baby, like pick times to give them the catnip, because some cats kind of do get pretty excitable or might start biting. Other cats get very relaxed and mellow and just kind of wiggle around in it. But I'm pro catnip. There's no indications that it's addictive or not safe. And cats also like other things besides catnip. So if you haven't tried silvervine, that is a Japanese plant that actually more cats respond to silvervine than respond to catnip. So if your cat doesn't like catnip, try silvervine. They might like that better. Cats also like valerian root, and they like honeysuckle. So don't be limited to just catnip. There's a whole world of things that your cat likes to sniff.
Is silvervine it's brown, kind of like a log? It looks almost like tree-like. Is that
it comes in a twig form, or you can get powder, or you can get the plant. So it has little buds as well, kind of like catnip. It has what are called galls, which are just the buds of it. So it comes in a few different forms, and most cats like all of them.
Yeah, we used to do Meow Box, the monthly subscription, and they sent it, and we looked at it, and obviously it's like, oh, this looks like something that you would find in a bathroom, but that we opened it up, the cats went crazy with it. So we didn't know what it was, so we Googled it, and it was basically saying it's kind of like another form of catnip, but they were going wild. It was the first time I think they've ever been exposed to it, and they were just bouncing off the walls.
That's so cute. So you never know what your cats will respond to until you test it out. So I encourage people to try things, see how your cat responds to catnip, give them some, and like I said, if they really freak out, then maybe be careful with it. But if they enjoy it, there's no harm.
So in your years of consulting, right, is there a question or a couple questions you've ever gotten where you're just like, you kind of have to drop your head, look up over your eyes, like, really, man? Like you were saying, like the question of like, oh, how do we fix the cat from going outside the litter box? Then you go to the litter box and it's just filled, like what are some really, just for lack of a better term, stupid questions that you've got in the past where you're just kind of like, really?
I really, I try not to, I think the most important thing, like when you start working with animals, like everyone's like, oh, it's so great, you're working with cats all day. I'm working with people all day. Like even when I was doing home consults, the time I spent with the cat was much less than the time I was spending with the person. And as someone who's worked as a teacher, I think you have to just accept that everyone's coming to you from a different place. And if someone actually came to me for help, then I have to respect that they know that there's something they don't know. So I try really not to be judgmental, even when the people like the litter box is dirty. Okay,
Maybe scoop it?
Yeah, I mean, it is, so, you know, my goal is always to not be judgmental. I mean, I've had people tell me some pretty sketchy stuff about, like, you know, hitting their cats or kicking their cats and out of anger and stuff. And so if I turn around and say, like, you're a jerk, like, why would you do that? They're not gonna hear anything else I say. So so I do try to just accept, like, people are coming from different places. They might have mental illness, they might have other stressors in their life, and just lay out the facts for them. Like, if you want to fix this problem, here's what you could do. You know, people do have funny questions, like,
Let's
or,
hear
you know, I
some
think,
of them.
yeah, well, I think one thing is that people always think that no one else has ever had this problem before. I can't tell you how many people like, have you ever heard of this? And it's something very, like, common, like cats peeing on the bed or something, you know, like, yes, I've heard of this. So people really worry that they're doing something wrong and that no one else has made this mistake, and therefore, like, I'm going to just be like, oh my god, you know, I've never, you know. So at this point I've seen it all. But you know, people do have questions about things like their cat's humping is a common one, which I always find kind of amusing, because sometimes people aren't very comfortable about talking about sexual behavior in their cats, or they don't really know how to approach it. And so, you know, in case anybody's wondering, maybe they have a cat who likes to hump blankets, or, you know, that's a very common target. It's considered normal for cats to do this. It's not common, right? But we've not consider it abnormal or necessarily problematic, as long as the cat doesn't have any health problems. We think it's an anxiety related behavior. And so sometimes you can reduce the humping by giving your cat more enrichment, more things to play with. So that's kind of a funny one, because people are often embarrassed to ask. They'll be like,
will cats do that if they're fixed?
They will. Yeah.
They will. Okay.
Yeah. And so it seems to have a, you know, motivation beyond just making babies.
Yes.
And yeah, probably the other thing that I'm always interested in is just how much people will kind of alter their lives for their cats. And it can be very endearing, but sometimes it's also, like, a little bit sad. Like, I have a lot of couples who move in together. Maybe they each had their own cat before. Now they're merging households, and the cats hate each other. And it's very common that those couples will sleep apart because they don't want their cats to sleep alone. Yeah. And that's always very sad. Like, you know, unless they like to sleep separately, you know, some couples, maybe someone snores, they don't want to share a bed. But for a lot of couples, it's like they're actually choosing the cat over their partner, which is sweet, but it's also a little sad. So we always want to get those people, like, in the same bed, hopefully all the cats in the bed with them too. Yeah. So those are, like, kind of some of the kind of funnier things that come up, but just, you know, I think the psychology behind, like, people's relationships with their cats is always very interesting. I'm also dealing with people who are willing to pay for help, and that's probably a slightly different demographic than your average pet owner, right? So the reality is that for some people, they're not going to pay for help if they're having a problem. They're just going to take the cat to the shelter, kick the cat out on the street, or take the cat to the vet and have them put to sleep. So, you know, it's there's still a lot of work to do on a broader scale and trying to get information out to people more generally. And like I said, I think there's been a shift in a positive direction. Certainly, like with Jackson Galaxy's TV show, or, you know, I think that provided a lot of education to people that maybe didn't know things about cats. But I think there's still a lot of misperceptions and negative attitudes about cats. You know, a lot of people just, you know, they kind of fall too far maybe on one side of the, like, dog or cat camp, instead of just accepting that they're not the same animals. You know, it's like, I don't expect dogs to act like cats. I don't expect cats to act like dogs. Yeah. So yeah.
The one thing that I think thankfully has kind of left is when people are, you know, when they target black cats on Halloween. That's been going on for a while, though. I haven't really heard a lot of instances of that recently.
No, and I think, you know, there was a period where shelters were very hesitant to adopt out black cats during the Halloween season. But now we're recognizing that it's actually more risky to keep them in the shelter and prevent them from being adopted, because they could get euthanized. Like, we want to move cats through the shelter because when cats stay in the shelter too long, it increases their risk of getting sick. It increases their risk of being euthanized or, like, deteriorating behaviorally. So rather than, like, stopping people from adopting those cats, yeah, I agree. Overall, I think the movement for cats has been positive. There's a lot more men who are pro cat. It's, you know, cool now. And like, I think that's fantastic.
So while we're talking about Halloween, cats in costumes, just for the record, they do hate it, correct?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of costumes on cats. I'll just
Yeah, I don't like it either. Even just like a t-shirt or something, you could see the cat like kind of. They
yeah,
just
like
don't like it. They
you
just
could get
don't
them
like
a
it.
collar. You know, if your cat is used to wearing a collar, just get them the holiday themed collar.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's about as far as I'm willing to take it. I'm not a fan of the costumes. I try
Yeah.
not to be too preachy about it because, you know, people do get real, they don't like being splained to, so you have to be really careful. I pick my battles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So eating habits. So how many times a day generally? Our rule here is we do once in the morning, kind of take it away so they don't graze, and then again once at night. Am I doing a good job? What are some good, just general feeding habits? Wet food, dry food, like what's healthy?
Yeah, what's healthy is feeding your cat food that's been AAFCO approved. So the AAFCO is a national organization that basically just sets the nutritional standards for pet food. I'm actually very agnostic on whether you should feed your cats dry or wet. You should feed, like I said, your cat food, and it should be something they like, something that works for you, and you know, something that your vet is aware of. But otherwise, like anything else is fair game. I do see people kind of trying to force their cat to eat something, like they really want their cat to eat raw food. The cat doesn't like raw food. Like, don't force them to eat raw food if they don't like it. You know, it's just like cats already have enough issues. Like, you know, just feed them something that, you know, is reasonably healthy, like the best food you can reasonably afford and that they enjoy. As far as the number of times a day, it's very interesting. When you look at the research on what cats do naturally, they actually will eat 8 to 15 very small meals a day. So if you think of it as their stomach is about the size of a ping pong ball,
okay,
size of a mouse, and a mouse has about 30 calories. So a cat would need about 10 mice a day to survive if they were hunting all of their food. And so your cat probably would naturally eat 10 meals a day. So I say, you know, one meal a day is definitely not enough. Like, we know from research that can increase aggression between cats. I mean, there's also a recent study that, I don't know, it suggested that one meal a day was okay. So it's really like what works for you, what works for your cats. What you don't want to do is like have your cat maybe gorging and then throwing up, like we call that scarf and barf.
Yeah.
And also respecting your individual cat. So if you notice that your cat just eats a few bites and then walks away, then they may be more of a grazer, and that's totally fine. Probably the most important thing, especially if you're trying to maintain your cat's weight, is just to know how much food you're feeding them per day and split it up in a way that works for you and works for your cat. So for example, 2 of my cats have microchip feeders. So only they can open the feeder because otherwise the other cat would eat it all. So one of my cats would eat everything you put in front of her, and the other 2 are grazers. So they can open their little microchip feeder as they wish. So I just measure how much dry food they get a day, and they can kind of choose when they want to eat. And I have a little app, and it shows me what time they ate and how much. And you can see on there they eat 8 times a day. From
So all right, plug that. I haven't heard of this. I'm interested. So basically, they have a collar, and they go up to the machine, and it'll just open the door out.
Yeah, so it actually operates off their microchip. So you can program it to your cat's microchip, so they don't even have to wear a collar. And then when they put their head in here, then whoop, it opens.
Oh, that is cool.
And then when they step away, it closes. It shuts. Yep. So the other cats can't get it.
And what brand is that?
It's called a SureFeed. It is made by, oh gosh, it's I want to say it's Sure Pet Care. And they're not cheap, but if you have a situation where you're constantly like trying to stop one cat from eating the other cat's food, or you're like, you know, picking them up and carrying them away from the food dish, or one of your cats is losing weight because they can't eat all their food, or they don't want to eat everything all at once, then it can really be a game changer. So I love them. I definitely find them very helpful for a lot of people. So as far as, so there's really no like right number of times to feed your cat a day, except I'd say more than once. So somewhere between 2 and 5 times a day is probably great for most cats. And like I said, if you can give them things like food puzzles or like the sure feed where they have a little bit more control if they're a grazer. I mean, some cats will just eat everything all at once. They're more meal feeders. And so you just have to be adaptable, I think, and try to do things on a routine. Cats, as you probably know, they get used to their meal times. I'm sure your cats, when mealtime is approaching, they're like,
so when it's close, they
they're like swirling.
They're ready. And when the time changes for, when you set the clock back an hour ahead an hour, everything goes out the window. The cats don't know what's going on, so
they don't know.
They'll start in at like 3 a.m. and just guess.
Yeah. So I think I always try to, if clients have questions about feeding, I do look at their schedule. So like, are they working from home? Are they working out of the home? And setting up something they can maintain. I think one danger is just a lot of people have been working from home, might be setting up a schedule that they're not going to be able to maintain when they go back to the office. So you don't want to, but technology can sometimes help. So
on a side note, I've had some people it seems like there's a little bit of a shortage going on right now with catnip. Have you found that? I got a lot of people who do Chewy and their orders are being backed up, and even I'll go to the grocery store and I'll go to the wet food aisle and it's completely empty. I mean, the fast food, quote unquote, drop the wet food, your Friskies, your fancy feasts, even the high end stuff, it's just gone. Do you find that there's a shortage right now?
Yeah, it's definitely
what do you think? COVID supply chain related kind of stuff?
Mostly supply chain. I think there's some work. I think some of it is like a lag. I think there's been changes in like meat production. I think there's supply chain issues. But I've heard from many people, and I've seen it myself. I've gone to the pet store and like the shelves are empty. So I do recommend to keep, a couple weeks food back stock. So I'm always like, you don't need to hoard. I mean, but you want to plan ahead so you don't run out, because cats do, they often kind of like what they're used to eating, and you don't want to necessarily introduce a new food too abruptly because it can cause digestive upset. So if you do have to switch food, try to have a transition period where you're kind of mixing the old food with the new so they don't get diarrhea.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you have, in all your years of consulting, do you have one really inspirational story that kind of sticks out?
Interesting. I mean, I've definitely had a few cases where I was like, I don't know if these cats are ever going to accept each other. And they did. The owners did everything by the plan and were very dedicated, took the time. And so, those are certainly the most rewarding cases, because honestly, cats fighting has the lowest success rate. Like sometimes those are long-term management situations. Sometimes people have to keep the cat separated unless they're keeping a close eye on them for months, if not years. So it can just be a very slow process. So those are often my favorites. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I see probably, 1 to 200 cases a year. So for like almost 20 years now, so there's been a lot. But yeah, I would say that really getting cats who have not been getting along to finally, like, I mean, I have one picture of these two cats that did not get along, and they literally, one of them has his paw around the other one, and so that to me is very sweet.
Yeah, for sure. So we're about to wrap up the cat stuff. Just as far as toys, playing, what are some really good play habits to do with your cat? Is there a specific, you should be playing for 20 minutes? You should be, what do you recommend exercise wise, play wise, how to engage with your cat?
No, this is great. I'm actually writing a book about cat play that'll be coming out in 2023. So I've had play on my mind a lot. And I mean, I think the most important thing is to do it every day on a routine. So you're kind of making it a habit. And so try to do it around the same time. For us, it's like, it's usually either after dinner or after TV time. So we try to like have it around the same time each day. It really depends on your cat. So if you have younger cats, they are going to need a few play sessions a day. The play sessions can be anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour, depending on the cat. I mean, younger cats will just play, and it feels like you can never tire them out. Older cats, their play is going to look pretty different. And it may be literally them just laying on the couch, like batting at the toy a little bit, you know? And so I think sometimes people think that for a cat to be playing, they have to be like running around doing backflips and stuff. And so then they stop playing with their cat when their cat doesn't do those things. And they fail to recognize that for some cats, especially older cats, like just watching the toy or batting at the toy is still play and it's still beneficial. Like it's not just about the exercise, it's also about the mental part. And if you think about how cats hunt, they are what we call stalk and rush hunters, meaning they spend a lot of time watching, waiting for that perfect moment to pounce. So cats are not just running around chasing mice, you know, left and right. They're sneaking up, right? If you watch a cat hunt, they're like doing butt wiggle and like sneaking up closer, and then they stop, and then they, you know, move and stop again. And so when you're playing with your cat, it can be like that. It can be a little less physically intense, but it's still very important. So I always encourage people, even with older cats, to try. If your cat's hard to play with, then maybe try moving the toy slower, or move it like under a blanket or under like a piece of tissue paper. Like a lot of cats find that very irresistible. Make sure you're trying a few different types of toys. So I like to have, you know, the kind of bird-like feathers, and then I like to have some that are more like mice and some that are more like bugs, because some cats have prey preferences or they might have toy preferences. And so making sure you're offering them a few different things. And I think the other piece of this is like a toy that you move, like the interactive toy is what we call it. It's a stick with something dangling off the end, not just putting a ping pong ball on the floor. I mean, that's good too, but the ping pong ball is dead unless your cat moves it. And the interactive toy, we're bringing the toy to life. We are acting like prey, and that's what really motivates cats as hunters. Like they're waiting for signals from their environment telling them that there's a mouse or a bird around, that they should kill it. And so the toy on the ground, the mice, ping pong balls, it's kind of like playing a board game by yourself. Your cat has to move it and then chase it. And so when we play with them with the toy, it's like they can really get lost in that hunting experience. So those would be my like key recommendations. Try a few different types of toys. You know, don't get too hung up on what the play looks like. Just make sure your cat's engaged and interested, and be experimental. Try a few different toys, try some different movements, try some different times, places, and see what your cat responds to best. Keeping in mind that, yeah, younger cats do tend to need more play than older cats, but that doesn't mean older cats don't need any play. And it doesn't mean that all young cats need 4 hours a day of play. I mean, some of them will be fine with 1 or 2 shorter sessions. So, you know, you're kind of looking at like, if your cat's chasing your ankles, they probably need more playtime with toys. So, you know, if they're climbing the curtains, they need more playtime. So, you know, adjust it in that way, but I do recommend at least 1 session a day, and if they're younger, probably more like 2 or 3.
Okay, one thing I will not allow in my house, because I personally think this is animal cruelty. Some people, they will play with the laser pointer.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of the laser pointer as a play toy?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's definitely some new research that showed a connection between the laser pointer and some signs of like OCD-like behaviors, so tail chasing, and some behaviors we might consider abnormal. So I think the main thing with the laser, it's the lazy person's toy, and so
I agree.
And some cats do become a little like obsessed. I mean, dogs do have more problems with like light chasing, and so we don't want our cats to get kind of obsessed with the light that disappears. So if you are going to use it, it should not be the main form of play. You can use it to warm some cats up. I mean, honestly, some cats, it is hard to get them started. So the laser can get them started, but you want to switch to a real toy early on. And then the other thing is, I feel like when you're using the laser, you should follow all the rules of like physics and real objects. So you shouldn't just make the laser disappear on the ceiling. Like you should make it go under a door. And then wash your cat. So if your cat is showing signs of suddenly like they're looking for any reflection and they can't stop staring at the walls looking for reflections, then they are not a good candidate for laser pointers, because they're probably on that OCD spectrum. So I don't want to say never use it, but it's honestly not my go-to. And I think there's so many better options out there that even if your cat does use a laser, you could do better.
What I don't like about it, and like we had one once, right, where we were just using a laser pointer, using it around the house, right, and then not even knowing, like, all right, the cat saw it and was immediately like engaged with it, like running up the wall. It was great chasing after it. But what I don't like about the laser pointer is that there's no payoff. Like the cat is running around, jumping all over the place, and essentially with the laser pointer, there's never a reward because it's
Yep.
not a physical object. At least if you're chasing down like a stuffed mouse, or like you were saying, the the feather toy on the string,
Yep.
they put the work in. They have the satisfaction of, hey, I got it. I
Got
can
this.
chew on it for a little
Yep.
bit. If there's catnip in it, with the laser pointer, they're putting all the work in, and they have nothing to show for it, unless you're going to
100%.
supplement it right afterwards with like treats or something, give them
Yep.
something where they can see the results. But and then the next day we put it in a drawer, and the cat's just at the drawer, and it's like,
No.
get this out
Yeah.
of the house. It is not good.
Yeah, no, these are great points because we're very visual, so everything to us is about vision, and we forget that other animals don't really experience the world in the same way we do. And when cats hunt, honestly, the vision is like not probably the most important part. And certainly you brought up a lot of really good points about the touching and the biting on the toy. Cats have lots of whiskers, not just the ones that stick out of their face, but they have whiskers on the backs of their paws. These are all they have nerve endings in their claws and teeth that help them kind of determine what's happening when they have prey in their mouth, right? Because when they have a mouse or a rat in their mouth, or a bird, they can't see it this close to their face. Their up close vision is pretty terrible. And so when they have the mouse, they're really relying on their face whiskers and their paw whiskers and their teeth and nails to tell them, is this animal struggling? Like, are they bleeding? Are they dying? Should I fight harder? And so they can't have any of those experiences with the laser pointer. It's a really good point. Is like, it's not just the visual piece, it's the hearing and the taste and the touch. And so that's why the toys do give your cats a much more kind of complete hunting experience, minus maybe the blood. But
Yeah.
I agree with you completely.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your musical career. You
Sure.
were you started out with the bass, or did you first do guitar? What's
Yeah, I mean, I was not a musician as a young person. Like, I got into punk. Like I said, I wanted to move to California to be in a band, but I didn't really know how to play anything at that point. So I guess bass just seemed like the easiest thing because there were fewer strings.
Yeah.
Although I did eventually, play a little guitar too. And now I'm trying to learn how to play drums. I have an electronic drum kit behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but
Yeah. What brand is it?
It's a Yamaha.
Yamaha. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, just like I've been obsessed with cats since I was young, I've been obsessed with music since I was young. Just like really, really into it, and realized at one point that I wanted to make music. Like, I don't know, like every guy I knew was in a band, and I was like, why can't I be in a band too? And so certainly, like, this is like early 90s, like Riot Girl was happening, and so it was like kind of like, okay, I can, you don't have to be able to play to be in a band. I like punk, like 3 chords, I can do this. So yeah, I started a band with some friends of mine in 1995, and then was in a bunch of bands. None of them like ever really got anywhere significant. Like, we played cool shows, but we were always like, opening for good bands, never like the headliner. But
yeah, that's all right though.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, got to play at some really cool venues, toured a few times. I did some roadieing, so I got to go to Japan and like played in bands that toured across the US a few times, stayed, played in people's backyards and empty bars and clubs, and it was really great. I mean, I still love music. I'm still obsessed with music. When I was in grad school, I was DJing at the college radio station. So music has always been like a really big part of my life, and playing music is definitely really fun. I mean, it can be hard to be in a band with people because it's like being in a relationship with several people at the same time.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
very personal. And when you're writing songs, you're kind of like opening your brain and letting people inside, and so it can be a little vulnerable place to be. But I always really loved like recording and kind of hearing the ideas that started as just like a riff in your head turn into a song, and sounding like good, like you can do things in the studio that you can't always do live. And so I really like all of those processes. I had a 4-track for many years. I was just always like, dumping ideas into it. And so it was really fun. It wasn't, when I went back to school, it was more just, I couldn't physically keep up with being in a band and studying at the same time. It was just too much. And so that's when that was about 2008 that I stopped playing in bands. you know, occasionally, like my friend had a 50th birthday last year, and so we wrote a song and recorded and like made a video for it last summer. So it was like a, you know, 2-day project that was really fun. So I still definitely enjoy playing, but yeah, the band thing, also just older, it's harder to stay up until 2 in the morning, you know, and you're in a bar and like gotta wait until the show's over to pack up your equipment.
Yeah, you got to work in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
It
the
just
thing
gets a
too. It's like people
tougher.
don't realize it, when you're playing, like you're not just, you know, you might, oh, here's a half-hour set. Well, you got to get there 2 hours before,
Sound check.
lug all the equipment.
Yeah.
You can't be rude and play and leave. So you got waiting around till 2 a.m. like you said, and lug it all back, drive to wherever you're going.
Yeah.
But so you were doing it in the 90s. Were you into grunge? Were you into that whole scene?
I mean, you know, I was definitely, grunge was a little, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Nirvana and Mudhoney and all those bands and stuff, but I was definitely more into the DIY, like Fugazi and you know, certain, you know, and you know, I definitely like a range of music from like super melodic stuff to more hardcore, but yeah, I was definitely more into the kind of the DIY, and you know, it was a big issue, like bands selling out at the time and like signed to major labels. It was very controversial. I was working at like Epicenter Records, which was this indie record store in San Francisco. It was all volunteer run, and like we didn't sell anything on major labels, and there was like this big controversy because like this band Drive Like Jehu wanted to play at the record store as a fundraiser, but they were signed to Interscope, and Interscope was like a subsidiary of DGC. So we had to have like a meeting about whether or not we're going to let them play. And so it's just funny, like, you know, at the time it was very political, not in the way things are political now, but like, just like what was considered punk and, you know, what was kind of acceptable as far as letting like mainstream media. I mean, it was before the internet was really what it is today. So it was just a very interesting time where ethics were very like serious and like you know, at the same time people had opportunities, like, you know, my friend's band got signed to a major label, and it was like, you know, it didn't end up going that great, but you know, it was an interesting kind of ride. And I guess one of the funniest experiences I had as a musician was I auditioned to be in the band Hole, and I don't know if you're familiar.
Of course.
Okay, yeah.
Of course.
So I auditioned to be their bass player after Melissa Uftemar quit. And so that was interesting because I really just wanted to know what the experience was like of auditioning for a major label band.
Was Courtney Love there, or did you?
It was not. It was Eric and Samantha, who was playing drums at the time. So I got to play with Eric from Hull, which was cool.
he was their primary. I mean, he did. I don't know primary, but I know him and Courtney did a lot of the writing. It was just the two of them basically writing the material.
Yeah, so that was a cool experience, even if I didn't get the gig. I mean, I didn't really want the gig because I'd heard a lot of like questionable things about Courtney. So I don't like talking about people, but like, you know, it just like
if you weren't into needles, you probably didn't want to be in that band.
Yeah. So anyway, but it was interesting kind of just see like what they put you through. I'm like, yeah, somewhere out there's like a videotape of me auditioning for Hole.
What did they tell you? They told you like, oh, learn 2 songs, learn 3 songs?
Yeah, it was 3 songs. It was Violet and gosh, I can't remember. This is like it was like probably 20 years ago. So Celebrity Skin, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I had to learn 3 songs. Yeah, I drove down to SoCal to play 3 songs basically, and then never heard anything. So
where was the audition? Was it in a studio?
Yeah, I was in like a big rehearsal space. I think it was in Santa Monica. It was somewhere in LA. Yeah, so it was cool, but so that was probably like my closest brush with fame in the music world. But
you know, that's pretty damn good though.
It was cool.
You auditioned for a Hole. They were a major band. Like
they were a big band. Yeah.
Was their big album? It was Live Through This. Yep. Celebrity Skin is their big single, but Live Through This is a really awesome album.
Yeah,
a lot of people.
Record.
There's a conspiracy that Kurt Cobain actually wrote a lot of the songs, but it's been debunked. It was you can say what you will about Courtney Love, but she is very talented. Not just with the music, she's a good actress. She's a little wacky, and there's some debate about what actually happened to Kurt. But as far as talent goes, she is very talented, and she was very important in that scene back then, especially she was a very prominent female figure.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And so, so yeah, there was, I mean, I think like, like being a musician, like if you love music, it's just like creating music is like really great and really fun. I love listening to music. I try to stay, kind of current with what's out there, especially in the kind of indie punk scene. So I like to listen to some freeform college radio. Now that the internet is everywhere, I can stream, like stations in other states. So that's really like really cool. So yeah, music is good. And like I said, the only downside is that the cats don't like the punk. So
what are,
volume down.
Name some current bands that you're listening to. I always have a hard time keeping up with current stuff too, honestly, just because I really can't find a lot that I like. But what are some current bands that you really like that you would recommend to people?
Yeah, I really love Sweet Reaper. If you like kind of melodic, like Green Day, but more like jangly, punky pop stuff. I love Cold Beat are a band from San Francisco. This woman, Hannah Lou, is the lead singer, and they're more like new wavy, kind of dark wave kind of stuff. The Guardian singles record that just came out is really good. I love this band Crack Cloud from Canada. They're more like arty. It's like a collective of people that create music, and they do some kind of out there musically stuff, but at the same time maybe slightly more slick and commercial. So I like the Genesis Owasu record. That's definitely kind of more Prince meets new wave meets hip hop kind of thing. I don't even know how to describe his record. I love Amyl and the Sniffers. That actually is the record I've been listening to the most. Comfort to Me, their new album. They're from Australia. More like glammy punk rock, amazing lead singer. And also I love the Chats, who I think are also from Australia. I sometimes get Australia and New Zealand confused, but I think they're from Australia.
Same accent.
So the Chats are really great. Yeah, those are probably the records that have been in my heavy rotation over the last few months.
All right, cool. So this show, it's called Headbangers at the Hangar, primarily music, but myself, I am very interested in the alien UFO world. So Headbangers at the Hangar, it's a tribute to this song by this band Megadeth. They wrote this song called Hangar 18.
I saw Megadeth.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, in like 1980. I don't know. I went to the Monsters of Rock tour when I was a teenager, so you probably weren't alive then.
No. But yeah, they have this song Hangar 18. It's about Bob Lazar, this guy who said he worked at Area 51.
51.
Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of a tribute to that. But before I let you go, I have to ask you what your opinions are. There's been a lot of things that have come about within the last couple of years, a lot of UFO sightings. The alien stuff, it's just kind of coming out more than it had been in past decades. What are your opinions about what's going on? Do you have any?
When I was a child,
I know I caught you a little off guard. But
no, I was like not expecting.
I ask every guest.
Okay. So as I told you, when I was a kid, I lived in a pretty rural area, and I was really afraid of seeing a UFO. Like, I think I had like a weird like fake memory of UFO. I don't know. I had a lot of fear around UFOs because you just be out in a very dark place and there's a lot going on in the sky, and you also felt like in a very remote location. I'd never have seen something that I would could say was a UFO. So I don't have any experiences. And as a scientist, I do try to, say what's the evidence for. At the same time, I mean, there are scientists like SETI. I mean, that is really just designed to look for other intelligent worlds. So I think there's kind of the UFO as this phenomenon of something we see in the sky that we can't identify. And I think, there's a lot of stuff going on in the sky. Like, I didn't even know there's like space law, like there's laws about space. Like there's so much going on out there, right? So there's satellites, and now there's drones and, other things that are going on, not to mention like stuff that's going on with like falling stars and meteors and stuff. So I think it's perfectly plausible that there's intelligent life on other planets, or life on other planets. I mean, it's a big universe. And so I say don't rule it out. We can't disprove it at this point. So let's look for evidence. But yeah, I don't have any personal exciting stories to share, except I was really obsessed with the Atari game E.T. when I was a kid too.
Have you ever seen the movie The Cat from Outer Space? Do you remember
Oh yeah.
that one?
Oh yeah.
I first ran into that like a couple of months back. We just got Disney Plus, and
Nice.
you know, I'm scrolling through, and it comes right. There's this movie from the 70s, The Cat from Outer Space. And I'm like,
and what was that cat's name? Was it Jasper?
And it was Jake, maybe. I think it was Jake.
Was it Jake? Yeah, that's
yeah,
funny,
really common name. I turned to my wife. I said,
"He's very cute.
This is right up my alley. A cat from outer space? Are you kidding me?"
I mean, I have joked a lot about like that our cats are just waiting for the UFO to come get them. Like they're just like, why are we like with these dumb humans? Like, please just come get me. So
I will say, if there is one particular cat that might be from outer space, it's the Sphinx. It has to be the Sphinx.
Agreed. You know, I actually have a VHS tape of The Cat from Outer Space.
Oh, do you?
I think it's in my garage. I have like a box of old VHS tapes.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate you doing the interview.
It was really fun chat.
Yeah, super exciting. This is going to be my last show for this year.
Nice.
I'm going to put it out probably today, and then I'll start fresh next year with some more stuff. But a lot of people were interested in it. A lot of people love cats.
Awesome.
All right. Now you won't say it, but I will say it just for the record. Cats are better than dogs. You don't have to back me up on it.
Oh no, I back you up on that.
All right, good. All right. Well, again,
thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you very much. Good luck. When's the book supposed to come out?
Well, I haven't finished writing it, and it takes forever to publish it, but it will be out on Tartar Peregrine sometime in 2023. So stay tuned.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good holiday season. All right.
You too. Okay.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.